Hey guys, Tyler here. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of our podcast for Game of the Year. Here's part 2. Hope you enjoy.
Silence! It's time! It's time! It's
Time for another episode of the Drunk Dash Nerds podcast.
Can you dig it, sucker?
Grab a six-pack, sit back and prepare to laugh. It's Drunk Dash Nerds podcast. Grab a six-pack, sit back and prepare to laugh. It's Drunk Dash Nerds podcast. Grab a six-pack, sit back and prepare to laugh. It's Drunk Dash Nerds podcast. Grab a six-pack, sit back and prepare to laugh. It's Drunk Dash Nerds podcast.
But moving on to our top 5. Gables, it's pretty funny. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of doing the show.
What's that?
Our Game of the Year list, where we are halfway through the list and we have no games in common.
That's a first.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened where like we don't have a single. We've each mentioned 5 games, so 10 games combined, and we've each not one of them. Like that means we've had 10 different games to talk about. So it's pretty cool. Like when we talk about this, like it's been a down year, but like it's pretty cool the fact
It's
that
vastly different.
yeah, like Mario Maker's in my honorable mentions, but it's not on my list. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I just thought that was I was just like kind of noticing that a couple minutes ago when you mentioned Mario Maker. I'm like, wait a second, we don't have anything in common yet, so it's pretty cool. But moving on to my number 5, kind of like another game where like going into the year, like there's a lot of games I thought would have been my top 10 list. And a good chunk of those games I thought would be in there are not on here, and there's games I didn't think. Like my top 10 list is like games that was like when I was putting this list together, I'm like, didn't I see that coming? And this is one of them. Like it's definitely a game I didn't think I thought would be good, but I didn't think I would be anywhere near the level that it was. Like this was a game that was in a lot of people's overall game of the year. It was in the Dice Award, one of nominees for Dice's game of the Year awards and Video Game Awards annual award. Control.
Really?
Yeah. So I really I love Alan Wake. I love that fucking game. It's so great. I hope to God we get a sequel of some sort, or just bring it to the current generation, because I hope people can play it again. Like it gets the audience it deserves, because it didn't get it last gen. So I'm like, okay, it's Remedy. I love Alan Wake. Quantum Break was actually a pretty good game. But it was a pretty good game, and it was just kind of, in fact, it's also it was exclusive to Xbox One, and it was an early one of those, and it had that whole weird TV thing. It just kind of got glossed over. This one, come out. It's first one. I think it's one of the first games ever on PS4, if not, or PlayStation. I think it might actually be the first game ever on PlayStation. But anyways, it kind of came out like I was shocked. This game hooked me. I beat this game in 4 days. I could just not stop playing it. I'm like I should be sleeping right now, but I don't want to, because I want to keep it's one of those games that kind of kept me awake, and I'm just could not quit playing it. I remember it came out I want to say it came out on a Tuesday, and by Saturday I had beat it. That's how much this game sucked me in. It was great. The whole story with Jesse and trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, what happened with her brother in the oldest house, all that was really well done. I love going around, very few, a million games do this, where they give you the here's this piece of paper with a email on it, or some, a little side thing on it, and most games you just ignore those. 95% of those times you don't even look, you just pick them up because it's a collectible, and maybe you'll get an achievement or a trophy for it or something like that. And that's the only reason. This game was one of those ones where I pick them up and I read them. And I was I wonder what the fuck's going on with this god. I was so fascinated with what's happening in this world. I wanted to know more. And I went through. I dove through every little nook and cranny I could. And I've talked before, I don't love Metroidvanias, and this game is definitely surprisingly was a Metroidvania style game. But I just love going back, because you would get to you need a level 5 key card for this spot, come back later. But the set pieces, the battles, getting the powers that you would get through the game, this is the real Star Wars game of this year to me. You get all kinds of awesome force powers, and using those, you felt especially as you got deeper in the game, you leveled them up and you got more different powers and stuff because you get skill points you can use to get different powers or boost the powers you do have. This is I just, by the end of it, I felt like a complete fucking badass. And like I feel like this is the game made me feel like a Jedi this year, not Fallen Order. This game, the big issue for this game was once again like glitches and like I remember every time and it was famous for this. Every time you pause the game and unpause it for like 20 seconds, like the frame rate was like 3. Like it was awful, terrible. It was really bad on everything. I'm playing on a PS4 Pro. I heard it ran a little better on the Xbox One X, but it was still a major issue. On PC, it was a huge issue. But despite all that, like this game looks gorgeous. It feels gorgeous. Everything about this game is gorgeous. Just really enjoy it. The one outside of like the frame rates, the biggest drawback was the final like section where there was no like final boss fight. It was kind of like that. It's like my least favorite thing ever. Like you get towards the end of a game, and it's like I rail on a lot of games like Uncharted 2. Like I love that game, one of my favorite games ever. The last like 6 chapters of the game are unnecessary. Could have been like 2 chapters, or it's like it's stretched out. Like they like this game isn't long enough. We need to add on more. And it's like the ending, like the end of this game, it turns into like you're just fighting waves and waves of enemies. Like we're just gonna throw more enemies at you. We're gonna throw a different combination of enemies at you, and that's how it felt. And there's no final boss. It's just like you're in this big ass room, and you fight a wave of enemies. You beat the wave of enemies, and the game's over. Like there's one little thing that happens afterwards, but like that sucked. I really like that game. Like I was all in on this game for 95% of it, and then that last 5%, I'm just like, this sucks. And it totally like put a big bummer. Like the wrap up just sucked. Still really recommend this game. They just did not nail the ending, which is very important in the game. Like maybe outside of maybe the first couple hours of a game, probably the most important part of a game, and really just any story in general is that last little section, and it was terrible. But that otherwise this probably would have been like one of my 2 favorite games of the year. But just that last little section was terrible. But I don't want that to stop you from playing this game. I heard it works better now. The frame rate stuff is over. I've seen it for like $20-$30. Check this fucking game out. It's fantastic. Control is my number 5. What about you, Gables?
My number 5 game of 2019 is Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Ooh, okay.
I gotta admit, going in, I'd never played Resident Evil 2. Not on the PlayStation, and definitely not in correspondence to whatever type of system that I've had previously. And mainly it's due because of the aspect that I don't like tank controls. I never liked tank controls. Not back then, certainly not
Terrible.
now. But in terms of Resident Evil 2 Remake, Capcom went the extra mile. Not only just with polish, but in remastering the gameplay and the control, and not just that, but just adding elements that were missing from the original. And as it stands, it remains probably one of the best horror games that I've had a chance to experience in quite some time. That said, I know I haven't beaten this game, and that's one of the few games that I still want to go back to. And the fact remains is, the last time I played Resident Evil 2 Remake, I had streamed it for quite a while, but the last time I had played the game was probably my most memorable moment one of the more memorable moments of last year, and that was my first encounter with a liquor. Now, I know, Tyler, I think you've heard it maybe a little bit from when I was talking about it, but I can just go forth and give you the scene right here. So here I am. I just got through a hellish section, and all of a sudden it's like I see something at the top of the wall, and like at the top of the roof. And so I go through a shine the light, and there it is. I know what it is, and I know that freaking tongue right there. I've seen artwork of it for years, and man, let me tell you, it's like, okay, so that's a liquor. So I basically went through, tried to move as slowly as possible, because I know that thing can't see, but they can definitely hear you. And so I had thought at that time that if I sneak past it a certain way, it's not going to hear me. Well, one thing that the game does to screw with you is definitely adjusting in terms of like how loud your steps can be. And so here I am doing like a moderate walk, right? And all of a sudden I just hear my footsteps. It's like, oh, duh, 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 like just like a little bit louder than I wanted to. And as a result, I go through that hallway. I turn a left, And I thought that the door that I had to go through was at the tail end. So I go all the way to the tail end, and I find out the door is locked. Now, as a result, I look behind me, and that damn liquor is like freaking, like, it's literally 5 feet away from me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go walk around you now, and literally, I did something to piss it off, and it was chasing me. I'm like, oh, no, 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 I gotta go with it. Let's go through this room. And all of a sudden, I just dart to the room right next to it, like on the left-hand corner, and I go through, the damn thing just like got shut on. And that in of itself was one of the most tense moments I've had in a video game for quite a long while. But it was hilarious where it's like, I'm on stream, you can just see me just like go through, and I just keep checking behind me, and the damn thing hears me and just drops down and starts getting closer and closer. But man, let me tell you something though. The gameplay of this damn game is just so smooth. I love the fact that they modernized the controls to where more people can enjoy Resident Evil 2. The story of Resident Evil 2, I honestly understand why people back in the day got so involved into it, because quite simply and stuff, it is great. It is great for what it is, and it's great for like going through with different characters and like exploring different types of like forays with both, I think it was both Claire and with Leon and stuff. I had a chance to play bits with like Leon. Got a couple chapters down. I think I played through maybe a quarter, maybe half of his campaign. Went through a couple of bosses and stuff. But man, it just felt like a monumental moment, like something that kind of something that clicked in my head, where it's like, wow, I missed out on a good game back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 5, Resident Evil 2 remake.
Very cool. Very cool. It's one of the games like I re-downloaded recently. Like I feel like I need to go back and give that a second shot too. So I'm with you on that one. I played the first handful of hours and just kind of lost it. But yeah, very cool, man. I'm glad I made the list somehow. My number 4, did not see this coming, especially like I mentioned Control. This one actually really blew me away when I was making this list. But it's probably the most fun. It's definitely one of the. Man, like there's definitely a difference sometimes when you talk about the most fun game and the game of the year. Like sometimes the most fun game isn't always a game of the year. This was definitely up there for like one of the most fun games for me this year, and I wouldn't expect it when the reviews first came out, because I didn't play. Came out in July. I didn't play it till September. Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Really?
Yeah. So, game came out. People hated it. It got a lot of 6s and some low 7s and shit like that on reviews, because it's sound. Even I was like, this doesn't sound like it was. I think it was only like $30 or $40 when it came out, and even I was just like, this doesn't sound like that great. But I love Wolfenstein. Looks like more of that, especially Wolfenstein 2 with the Doom gameplay. Go ahead, Gables.
So Tyler, let me ask you, what was the turning point which made you decide, hey, this is one of my favorite games of the year?
It's Doom gameplay. It's got the shit that you, if you want, like I love Wolfenstein 2 because it kind of like, Wolfenstein 1 was a really, 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 really well made game. It was a lot of fun. The story was great. Loved the characters, all that. But it was like Wolfenstein 2 was fantastic because they kind of just took like the run and gun, fast paced nature of Doom and intertwined it into the Wolfenstein world, and it was fucking awesome. And this just does more of that, where it's like I wanted. This is what I was hoping Rage 2 would be, where I'm like, all right, it's open world Doom, give me that. And it wasn't. Like 90% of the game is driving around in a world with nothing to do in it, and 10% of it is awesome, but you rarely ever get to do that shit. And this is just like there's like 5 or 6 like environments you go into. They're not huge, but there's like side shit you can do into them, and it's just like it's fast paced. It's got the gameplay is fantastic. Like I don't know, like the RPG mechanics. So like you get skill points like that to like up your abilities. Like they definitely changed it from like Wolfenstein 2 was just like pretty much straightforward. There was definitely some side stuff you can do in each level, but it was very much kind of like a straight path through things. But it was great for what it was. Mm-hmm. And this one they added like the RPG mechanics, like leveling system, and all that. Like that stuff was whatever. It's not great. I don't love it. But just and like the I didn't like the sisters. They're just not. They try to make them like wacky and funny and shit like that. And it didn't click. It's definitely
But that's the type of like forced character design that just sounds so unappealing to me.
Yeah, and it didn't hit. Like, but it's so few and far between. There's very little of that. Like, you can get more into that if you want to. I didn't do that. I just kind of wanted. I just enjoyed going around, and the gore aspect of it, the shooting mechanics of it, all that was great. And that's what it was for me. It was just like, that's what made it like really really fun. Is the gameplay itself. That's what carried it for me. Like, it definitely. If it would have been like it worked out that like 80% of this game is the gameplay. Like, if Rage 2 would have been like 80% the gameplay and or like of the shooting part of it, and 20% the driving and all the other shit I didn't care about, like I would have played more of the game, probably would have beat it, probably would be on my top 10 list. Right. But this game, like, I don't know, and it definitely, I think it helped, especially I didn't play it when it first came out, because I remember like it came out and like, ugh, it doesn't sound great. And I finally, I'm like, all right, but I bought it, I might as well play it, kind of thing. And I was just, like, I just beat Control, and I'm like, all right, I need something else to play. And I was just like, fuck it, I'll play this while I'm waiting for Link's Awakening. And well, again, it was fun. It was just a blast. It was legitimately like turn off your brain, have fun kind of game. And it's like those games, like you might get one or so of those a year, but there's one was it helps that this is a light year, obviously, but it was one of those games where like I look back upon this year and like playing through this game was one of the more fun experiences of the year, where it's just like it was pure joy playing through this game. Like, and some of the, I don't know, like the boss fights weren't great. There was definitely problems with this game, but yeah, Wolfenstein Youngblood, it was, I don't know, you can't go into this expecting Wolfenstein 2. You got to go in with your mindset right with this game. It was, I think the price point helped too, being $30. Like, I went into it and knowing what I was getting into. Like, I just had it was fun. It was a blast to play this game. If that's what you want more of that gameplay of this, and you don't want more of the Wolfenstein universe, like, you're gonna have fun with this. And that's I think that's what helped me going to that, knowing that. So that's why it's number 4. What's your number 4, Gables?
All right. So my number 4 is Persona 3: Dancing in Moonlight.
Damn.
Well,
okay.
you were just saying in terms of like one of the fun games and stuff that you had with and stuff that, you know, not a lot of people would go through and talk about. I kind of had the same thing where like Persona 3: Dancing in Moonlight, yes, one of the other dancing games, a part of that package that I had gotten earlier last year. However, I enjoyed the song selection and the character development and stuff between like different characters when you're unlocking things so much that I felt like it was worthy to be inside of that consideration for top 5. Because it's like I said before, like with Persona 5, Dancing in Starlight, this is a game I also completed. I completed this game, and I got the Platinum Trophy, got the best like things possible in terms of rank for each song, because I intently loved the songs, loved the characters, loved the different types of like aspects of like the adaptability in terms of like how you can manipulate a song, how you can play it in a specific way. And quite honestly, it was very fun. I mean, I love my music games, and like I've stated before with the previous dancing game, it's like this is the one I enjoy more than, say, the Persona 5 and stuff, because of the song selection, because of like the different characters, you know, that I'm a little bit more accustomed to, but at the same point, it just had that fun factor, which I was just playing literally like for a good solid month or two. And that always is a good thing in my book. So, yeah, for number 4, was it number 4?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 4 is Persona 3, Dancing in Moonlight.
Very cool, Gables. All right, Gables. So moving on to my number 3. We're in the top 3 already. My number 3.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's great. We're flying through this one. My number 3 game of the 2019 is Luigi's Mansion 3.
Ooh.
Yeah. Once again, like a game I'm like, oh, this could be a fun little game to play through. I was like putting on like, oh, this could be like a Yoshi's Woolly World type of game, you know, like that, like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, like a fun little, non-top tier, middle of the pack kind of, you know, Nintendo game. That could be a lot of fun. And once again, one of the more enjoyable games of 2019 for me. Like, just a really fun experience. Like the only real issue I had with this game was it had a little bit of that Lego video game factor where like I really enjoy the Lego games, but my OCD kicks in where I got to collect every goddamn brick, even though it means nothing to me. This game had the same thing where every room had 1,000 coins in it, but there's no purpose for the coins. They mean nothing. I had to get them all. I couldn't help it. I had to collect them all. So it probably took me like an additional like 5 hours to beat this game because I was trying to get all the collectibles or get all the coins. But no, I remember like it came out October 31st, so it was like the Tuesday or so before. It was a week of Extra Life, and I ended up like I beat Call of Duty that morning, and then I like my entire evening and early morning was playing through Luigi's Mansion 3. Like just had an absolute blast playing to that on that day. Like it totally like it consumed a good chunk of like that made that whole like Extra Life usually. So there's points, especially towards the end, where it just drags for a lot of people, especially me. That last like especially when you get in the middle of the night part where if every 15 minutes feels like an hour, and playing through this game definitely liked it. Just made that time fly by for me a lot more than it normally does for Extra Life, and it was just going back and like even the next day, like usually after Extra Life, there's like that Sunday and Monday, I'm like I don't want to play any goddamn games. I'm just done with games. And it's like I remember getting up on Sunday and I'm just like I want to play some more Luigi Mansion 3. And I just every level going like going on the elevator and getting like I wanted to see what the next. I couldn't wait to beat that section. Like I was having a blast in each section, each floor you went on, but I couldn't wait to see what the next one was. Like oh cool, this one's Egyptian, this one's pirate. Like just going into each or this one's a movie set. Like I loved every floor I went on to. I could not wait to see what that next section was. Every boss was cool. I loved all the boss fights. Legitimately some of the most fun boss fights I've faced in a while. Just adored all this game. It's not super hard. I think I died 3 times in the game. Actually, I died 1 time, and the other part was there was like one boss fight you have where you have to beat him on a certain amount of time limit, and I just ran out of time twice fighting them, and that was it. So like the game is not really overly challenging whatsoever, but it's just a fun time. And the Luigi stuff, like when I first saw that, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hate this, like having to control a second character, and do all the puzzles along myself. But like it was a lot of fun. Like I love Luigi. Like it was like give me a Luigi amiibo. Like I want that. Like this game is legitimately a blast to play, and I think if you haven't played it yet, like it's one of those games. If you have a Switch, especially right now when there's not a lot going on with gaming, and if you have if you want something to play on your Switch, this is like a must buy. I feel like this is surprisingly like one of those games that if you want a Switch you have to have is Luigi Mansion 3. So that's why it's number 3 on my list. Gables, what's your number 3? Oh fuck, he's laughing and it always scares me.
My number 3 game of the year for 2019 is Untitled Goose Game.
Wow, I thought this would be like number 1. Okay.
Well, here's the thing.
Can I just spoil something for you real fast, Gables?
All right.
My number 2 is Untitled Goose Game. So.
You and I almost the same thing because I had personally thought about doing a number 2, and I'm like, oh no. Unfortunately, there were 2 other games that I kind of felt like I liked better.
I can't wait to hear what
actually
next
more.
One is. Yeah.
Not better, but like more. But like Untitled Goose Game. What can I say really about this game that I already hadn't said already in consequential podcast episodes with us? Oh man, I'll never forget the moment where it's like I felt like a legitimate dick just going around, just like it having so much fun, just being a dick.
Yeah, it's like I don't like to be an asshole like to people, but like this game, like it's all the things you want to do in real life but you can't do. You just get to do in this game.
I tell you what, it's playing as that goose and going through like especially the guy's garden and stuff, or like going to the aspect of screwing around with that kid and stuff like that. In the back of my mind, I just kind of pictured my goose voice or something like that. It's like, oh, I know what you got there, lady. You got a little radio right here. It would be a shame if actually someone went to go and take it. Oh, there we go. But, oh man, just the whole moments where I would just go through, just like do like just random shit and stuff like that. And after they go through, like either fall on their face or like, or one of my favorites is like taking the farmer's rake.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
And putting it in the freaking like a lake and stuff like that. The rake in the lake, and I see him just like get his feet wet and just look down, and then all of a sudden he just sees me over there. I'm like, honk, 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 honk. Just go off. Oh my god. Between that and the shutting the freaking lady inside of the damn garage and stuff with the freaking the booby trap like duck honking.
Oh yeah, that's,
radio.
oh my god.
Oh my god.
I want to replay this
the
game.
whole aspect, and dude, the whole aspect of the last final part of the game where it's like you go to that restaurant, right? And you quintessentially go through and like you have this lady go through and get this stupid crate of tomatoes. The tomatoes are all set, and all of a sudden the guy is like right above it. All of a sudden you do something in the upper part, and he just goes, oh, you put the bucket on his head, right? And he goes, he falls, and he just sits and his asshole just drinks up like fucking tomato paste. And he's like, oh no. Oh, they think I've got blood on my ass. Oh.
Been there, done
that. But never have I played a game where I absolutely not only enjoyed being a dick, but just went ahead and just absolutely just had a ball from beginning to end. The game in and of itself is like roughly around 5 hours, or even, God, 5 hours at the longest possibly.
Yeah, you could be like in an hour if you're fast enough.
But it was one of the few games where I bought for like maybe $15-$20. Absolutely enjoyed that experience. I was just so in love just playing Untitled Goose Game. But I knew exactly what my fun would curtail, but I did not know it would be to that level of excitement and glee every time I powered on the game, and all of a sudden just walking around as the damn goose, flapping my wings, looking at people, honk honk. They just go through, just walking on my way. They just go through and like just, randomly getting the freaking shoelaces off a kid, chasing them around, making them fall inside of mud puddles, stealing his glasses.
Fuck kids, man.
Then going through to the farmer, stealing something from him, going through the lady at the shop, making him pay for his own shit.
Oh man, yeah. It's September was like my favorite month of the year by far, where it's like this game just took over the internet. Like even people that didn't know or care about video games knew what this fucking goose meant. Like,
oh, let me tell you something. On Facebook, when I was posting those goose like freaking memes and those pictures.
Yes.
Oh, my mom kept questioning me so much after like all that stuff. It's like, why are you posting nothing but goose things? It's like, well, you don't get it. Mm-hmm. And now every time that's something like a goose, it's like, look, Gabe, it's a goose. You're like, oh god, no. It's a welcome thing because I love my mom, but at the same time, it's like when it comes to stuff like say like animals and this and that and stuff, she knows I like animals.
Yeah.
But with the whole Untitled Goose Game and everything else and stuff like that, I am just so tempted now to go online and just find a shirt in my size that just says "peace was never an option" and just have the fucking goose with the switchblade in its mouth.
Yeah. It was funny before we started the show. I was telling Gables about how I bought some shirts on tfury.com, and two of them were Untitled Goose Game shirts, and I showed him one, and it's literally it's like the cover of like the original Doom, but it's got the goose on top instead of the Doom Slayer, and it just says instead of Doom it says honk, and it's just like a pile of like skull and bones on fire, with the goose on top. It's
oh my god! I just remembered another great moment from that game, and that's when you go through the neighbors like. You go through the two neighbors, right, from side to side, and you break into the lady's yard and stuff, and then you steal her bra, and then go over, like, to the other guy's yard, and all of a sudden it's like, he freaking takes the bra, tosses it over, and the lady's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, man. When you steal a slipper and you throw it in the fucking little pond he has there.
He's like, no! Just the look of anguish, like, through his motion and stuff.
Oh, man.
Oh, how about getting the freaking, like, the little ribbon and stuff on the
goose,
when you take that thing?
Oh, my God. Oh, my... This whole game is just, like, whataboutism. Like, we just, like, you talk about, like, what about this part? What about this part? And it's all fucking great, and it's fun to talk about. We've all experienced it that played this game, and it's just a blast, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, I love...
Well... Yeah, I know.
Oh man,
I know what you mean.
It's like this is like a really fun game, but I think what puts it over the top is just like how it, to me personally, is just like how it took over. Like I was just mentioning earlier, like how it took over the internet. Like I go on Twitter and I for like a week or for a whole month, it's like Gears came out, Controller came out, Link's Awakening came out, And we're all talking about fucking Untitled Goose Game. That's all everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was so fun.
It was amazing.
It brought me back to like when Pokemon Go first came out, and like everybody was like if it was like the last time the country felt united was when Pokemon Go came out. Like
Oh my
Untitled
God.
Goose Game coming out was the closest I have felt to that moment since then, where it's like, oh, this is all fucking great. I love all of this. All right, Gables. So I've already your number 3 was also number 2. So Untitled
Yep.
Goose Game, fucking blast. So I guess go ahead and move on to your number 2.
Okay. So, my number 2 game of the year for 2019 should become no surprise for people if you've been listening intently with this podcast, and that's Pokemon Sword.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pokemon Sword and Shield had a lot of controversy, obviously. The whole Dexit stuff, the whole people being unhappy because not a lot of their favorite Pokemon made it. Well, at the same time, I understood, but it didn't really depreciate the quality of the game that I felt that Game Freak provided. To be perfectly honest with you, I had a blast playing Pokemon Sword. I felt that the starter selection was alright. I got my score bunny, went through my journey, met a whole bunch of fun new Pokemon and just a whole bunch of different types of situations and different types of parties and stuff like that I had tried out. And it was hilarious because it's like, okay, there's something that's called like a Rookity, and I got that, and I evolved into like a Corvisquire and then like to a Corviknight, right? That gigantic metal crow like damn thing that does like transportation between one thing to another. Just the Pokemon designs in general I felt were very cool. I loved adding a bunch of them to my party. So I had my party outlook is I had the freaking Frapple, which is like a part dragon, part apple.
I still love that name. It's so stupid, but it's great.
I know. It's so stupid in terms of the name, and the design is actually pretty creative to where you have like a dragon that's like emerging out of an apple just flapping its wings, and you have the freaking like, you have parts of the apple everywhere in its lanky little body. It's like, I think it's going to be pretty freaking dangerous, man. You get something like a dragon dance where you're setting up attack and speed. I literally swept people inside the latter part of that game because I just set up and sweep. And I just looked at it, it's like, well, you know what? It's like, if anything else, yeah, everybody has their other intimidating looking Pokemon. You have your Charizard, you have your freaking like a Corvisquire, you have all these things. And no, what do I got? I got a fucking Flapple.
It's funny. I've seen it a million times, but I just Googled it again and look at the images and laugh at it. This is great.
It's great, man. It's like a lot of the designs I kind of feel are that way, where they're just great, even though there's some of them are kind of like freaking funny. Like, I didn't have a chance to play the Pokemon like Surfetch and stuff, because the conditioning in order to evolve that Galarian Farfetch into Surfetch is fucking crazy, where you had to score 5 successful like critical hits or something like that before it evolves. Which, I don't know how often I'm going to go through and get a critical hit unless I have a move that specifies or an item that specifies. But, no, a lot of my experience inside Pokemon Sword was very positive. Not just because of the whole exploration of every bit of the terrain for like the open wilds and stuff, where I encountered different types of Pokemon. Some of them were like vastly higher in level than I was. And even in terms of that, you still had the option of like skipping some bits of battles in regards to like the random encounter stuff. It felt very refreshing in terms of playing a Pokemon game where you not only don't have random encounters as like traditionally they would be, but at the same time you had a chance to see, okay, this is the type of Pokemon that comes out during this time, this type of weather situation, or this or that. I think one of my favorite moments in playing Pokemon Sword was trying to encounter Dreepy, the Pokemon that's part like a ghost, part dragon. I could not find a Dreepy to like save my life in this game, but I found its middle evolution, Dracloak, as a wandering Pokemon inside the center of the field right by where the final portion of the game is. And it's like, I got that, and immediately as I did that, I started breeding the darn thing with a Ditto that I had gotten through like a surprise trade. And I just went through and got my Dreepy. And quintessentially, that's one of the Pokemon that I absolutely want to like use the most in terms of like if I want to do competitive play stuff. But I'll tell you what, just going through and tracking down a lot of those different Pokemon, and not only that, but also battling like against the other types like rival trainers from like Marnie to Bede to like your rival Hop as well. You have three different rivals, right? But each of them were distinct in terms of their personality, in terms of their traits and stuff. And quintessentially, I kind of feel like with this game, especially, the characters inside of Pokemon Sword, they start off, it's like, oh, okay, they love the stereotypical stuff, but at the end, they kind of evolve to where each character is a bit different in that regards. A part of what I like in good storytelling is you're able to go through and look at, okay, is this character the same as they were the beginning of the story as opposed to the end of the story? And sometimes you can just determine certain characters, certain good characters with that type of a trait, And Pokemon Sword is sort of like that, where beginning you have a group of characters that, like, say they're your rivals, or even like in terms of like the champion or whatsoever, they start off like this, but then they all of a sudden they end at a specific point at the end of the game and stuff that totally surprises, and that just totally almost like 180s in terms of like what they can do and what they can present and stuff. And I really love the aspect of a part of the later parts of the game. I'm not going to spoil because I know, Tyler, you're still kind of like playing bits of Pokemon's Shield here and there. But I honestly enjoyed the end part of that game very much, especially with the legendaries and stuff. I mean, with Zacian and Zamazenta and stuff. I felt that they were fun Pokemon to play around with in that regards. But, oh my gosh, the tournament stuff for Pokemon Sword, just all the gym battles. The gym battles inside the huge stadiums and stuff, that epic big match feel. Oh, yeah, that's what I've absolutely loved about this game the best. Because here you are, you're facing off against gym leaders, you're facing off like inside of the final tournament and stuff inside of this game, and each battle feels epic. And I gotta admit, man, it's like there are some characters that I've actually started to like fairly surprisingly. I didn't think I would have any interest in. Like gym leaders like Opal and like oh my god, Piers, the gym leader for like the poison types. The poison type gym leader and stuff like that. These were characters I had no interest in, and all of a sudden I go through the initial storylines and this and that, and it's like it's actually one of the first times in any Pokemon game where I actually cared a lot about the gym leaders, because a lot of them did have different types of personalities and things that I liked, as opposed to, you encounter a bunch of gym leaders. Sometimes you may help them with some stuff, but they never really gave you a sense of like scale in terms of having that big old moments of, oh hey, they make the whole Pokemon Championship seem like a lot bigger in that regards. I didn't get that feeling from some of the older Pokemon games, but from this one, for Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, in that regard, I felt that it felt more epic in terms of earning your way to the top slot, the top spot in terms of like the Pokemon world in that game, where every gym battle felt meaningful. They hype up the Pokemon Championship stuff as something like awesome, something epic and stuff. How are you going to go ahead and they build up Leon, like the Pokemon champion and stuff like that, so much in that regards, where I feel like they gave him a little bit of sense of like, say, a build up, kind of like when you're watching professional wrestling, right? You get all these different promos and all these different types of events that go on, and then you have the culmination of like a match and stuff inside of a pay-per-view. That's what it kind of felt like to me, where each month and each thing, the storyline keeps progressively getting bigger and bigger, and there's other characters going in and out, interwoven the storyline, and then all of a sudden you're left with a final main event right here, where it's just you against the champion, and it just feels like a colossal fight.
Yeah.
And that is something that I cannot like praise enough, because it made the last portion, it made the final part of this Pokemon game feel a lot better than some of the older ones that I've experienced. The last time I've really truly enjoyed a Pokemon game in terms of its end game, or in terms of the final battle, was in Generation 4 with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. And even like Platinum. Most specifically Platinum, because that was the better game of the three. But the battle with Cynthia, in terms of that subset of like Pokemon games, that generation, that felt epic. And it kind of gives me sort of the same similar feels in terms of Sword and Shield, maybe not on the level of par of, say, like a Cynthia in terms of that, but at the terms of everything else built around it, it just gives you this final battle where it just feels amazing, in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
So that's why Pokemon Sword is my number 2 game of 2019.
That's pretty cool, man. That's definitely a game I need to jump back into, but like, no, I just kind of got lost by the wayside there. But I agree with everything you said there. Where like everything, like it's so simple, and it's not like it's like super great. It's not the greatest of all time storytelling, but it's like these minor tweaks where they actually gave their characters a character, like have made a huge difference. Like with, like you said, like all the gym leaders, like it's not just some random person you battle in a building. You know, it's like now there's like you actually like have some communication. You know who these people are before you get to them. And it's like just stuff like that, and like the build up to like Leon, like you did a really well job, like of like comparing it to like it's like a really well built like storyline in wrestling where it's like oh, I can't wait to see these like this fight, like this match, like it's not just like the you know, it's not like what we see a lot of times in wrestling where it's like the generic monthly pay per view. It's like if like imagine if you had 8 really well built storylines in a row of wrestling. That's what you have with these gym battles. And that's like an excellent way of putting it. And yeah, like it's like I actually kind of forgot I had that game. I need to jump back into it and play it because I really was having a blast with it, and then I just kind of got sucked into some other shit, and I just never got back to it. So I need to get back to that because that game is I agree, fantastic. But moving on to my game of the year for 2019, number 1. No surprise, really. I think to anybody. I think Gables. Can you guess what it is?
Okay, your number 1 game of 2019. Was it Resident Evil 2?
No, it was not Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 did not make my list. It's a game I need to go back to, though. It is, for the first time ever in the history, this is our, what we did, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. This is our 6th time doing this Game of the Year show. Our 7th time doing it because we did 13. Xbox One exclusive game. It's an Xbox exclusive. I've had PlayStation exclusives. I've never had a Nintendo exclusive. This is my first ever Xbox exclusive. Gears 5.
Gears 5 is your game of the year.
It's my game of the year. And it's not even like a doubt in my mind. It was like I talked about, like the original Gears trilogy is just like it's a fun. It's kind of I put it like it's like a Call of Duty game. It's just a fun third-person, well-made shooter game, and like, but it's just like everything else. Like you don't give a fuck about anything else. It's just fun set pieces with some like over like stupid acting and shit like that. Where like, but then like that was the first trilogy, and Judgment was just like a lesser version of that. And then so it's kind of like kind of what it like Halo. They're trying to like change the game up, and like you could talk. A lot of people talk about like. Since like the original Halo trilogy was fantastic. Reach was really, really well good done. Like that's most people talk about. I like Reach a lot, but I'm not a Halo guy whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's like it's the opposite of what Halo's going through. Like where 4 and 5 came out, like 4 like it's pretty good. 5 was like a lot of people hated 5, and like Gears is like the opposite, but to a lesser standpoint. Like it's really like I think it's better than ever. I think Gears is the best it's ever been. But oddly enough, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of buzz around it. Like Gears is probably the less exposure that it's ever seen, and it's disappointing to see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe part of it's being on Game Pass. I'm not sure, but it was still one of the highest selling games of the month of September, and it was on Game Pass, which is crazy to see. I think it was like 2 or 3 that month. But I don't know. It's nowhere in the top 20 list for the. So I know what. Obviously, Xbox is not doing great this generation, but Gears 4 sold really, really well before it came out. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird spot. I don't know. I don't really understand it. Like, because obviously Game Pass was a wrench into that. But we're like, Gears 4 came out, and I talked about a lot. Where it's it's like the Star Wars Episode 7 of it, where it's like we're gonna intermingle the new characters with the old characters, and they did a really great job of doing that. Where it's like, here's all the characters you love. They're back. Braid's back. Coltrane's back. They're all back. But we're going to bring in all these new characters. It's kind of like Mortal Kombat had an issue with, I think, with Mortal Kombat X. But they did a great job with it. Like, they intertwined them all together really well. And I don't know. I just, like, going to this one, it was, like, a lot of people say, it's just more Gears. But it was more than that. I think the story, like, this first time ever, like, you're You're playing as Katie for the most part. She's the main character. This one before, she was one of the side characters, but she was probably the second most important character of the campaign. When the first one you played as JD, who was the son of, I'm forgetting his name. What's the main character from the first trilogy?
The main character from the first trilogy? You mean like Marcus Phoenix?
Marcus Phoenix, thank you. So you play as a son in Gears 4, but in this one, like she was obviously like Katie was the most important character, really toward by the end of it. And then in 5, you play as her for pretty much 90% of the game. And I loved how like it turned out like so it's actually the shortest one of all of them as far as like acts go. I think there's only 4 acts when the other ones all had 5. But the big difference is like in 2 of them, in the middle, the second and third act, they added like an open world element to it, or it wasn't like a huge open world by any sense, but they added like side missions and there's all this extra like shit you could find to it, and it wasn't like overly done where it's like it's just fetch quest bullshit that's just like we need to pad out the game. Like all the side quests actually had some value to it. Like they gave you a cool weapon, or there's some cool stuff to figure out what the fuck's going on in the world right now. Because there's some like you're still kind of confused like what's going on. Like I thought we like defeated like all these. I thought the war was over, and it's coming back. And it was just kind of interesting jumping back into that. Like for like the first 4 Gears games, you didn't give a fuck about the story, and then 4 and 5 came out, and you're like, all right, what the fuck's going on here? And like it's funny to me, like you actually like give a shit about these characters. And like, even at the time I talked about Gears 4, I talked about too. It's like I actually kind of care what's going on with these characters a little bit. And 5, like you really like, I actually like these characters, like you said, in the with Pokemon Sword and Shield, these characters actually have some character to them, and it totally just changed the game for Gears. I think the point like I was sucked in. Like I enjoyed playing this fucking game. Like I love that style. Like I love that third. Like Mass Effect 2 was one of my favorite games of last generation, because not only over Mass Effect 1, not only because of the storyline, but because it was basically just copied off Gears gameplay. Like that's what made the difference.
Yeah.
Like, Mass Effect 1 was the gameplay was okay, but the story was fucking fantastic, one of the greatest stories of all time in video gaming. But 2 was like, we have a really great, one of the greatest stories of all time, but also it's just Gears of War gameplay, and that's what put over the top for me. And it's kind of the same thing here, where it's it's just like it's Gears of War story, or it's Gears of War gameplay, which is like one of my favorite gameplays to do, like, for gaming to do. But it's like here's also like a really well made story. It's not. Don't get me wrong. It's not God of War. It's not Last of Us. It's none of that. Not whatsoever. But it's like it's done well enough that like you actually give a shit. And like I enjoy that a lot. I can't wait to see. I'm assuming Gears of War 6 is gonna wrap it all up, because that's what they do. What they do with these games. But it just I was expecting this to be a really fun game. A game I liked. It was one of those games like going into the year. If you would have asked me, of the games that are on my top 10 list between After Party, Star Wars Fallen Order, Link's Awakening, Modern Warfare, Mortal Kombat 11, Control, Wolfenstein Youngblood, Luigi Mansion 3, Until a Goose Game, Gears 5. If you would have asked me at the beginning of 2019, which one of these games would be on my list, Gears 5 would have been on that list. Like would be the only one I guess would be on my list. But I'm like, it's probably gonna be around in the middle somewhere, 5, 6 kind of thing. But the fact that it's number 1 kind of shocks me. But I know, like I said, it's a down year, but even still, like it's a really one of the better games of this generation. Like it's one of those games I feel like it's gonna, like where a lot of people are gonna forget about, unfortunately. But it's man, if you have it's once again, like I talked about, like if you have a Switch, you need Luigi Mansion 3. If you have an Xbox One, why the fuck haven't you played Gears 5? Kind of things. Like it's definitely one of those games. It's a must-have on your console kind of game. And it's easily the best looking game I've ever played this generation. Gorgeous. Like the colors pop with the HDR. The 4K makes it shine like no other game has shined before. Like it's everything about this game I think is damn near perfect for what I want from it. Like from a video game, especially from just a fun standpoint. Like it. I thought about like the top 4 games of the list for my year, like are like the 4 most fun games I played this year, for me. And then Gears 5 having I think a really good story also put it over the top is what made number 1. But my number 1, Gears 5. I was shocked too. What about you, Gables? What's your number 1?
My number 1 game is Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Nice. Yep.
Well, I gotta say though, it's like I'm in the same boat as you were in regards to if you would have told me the beginning of 2019 what would be my absolute like favorite game of the year. I mean, I would have possibly like thought, okay, maybe the Pokemon games would have been number one, maybe like the Luigi's Mansion 3 and stuff, or like, and it's something Nintendo related. I mean, I knew something Nintendo related would be like in the running or something, but to tell you the truth, Fire Emblem Three Houses caught me completely off guard in regards. It was a midsummer release. It was in July, and I picked up the game. Didn't really think much about it. I had it like on my shelf and thing like about for a good solid couple weeks until I cracked open the game. And it's like, you know what, I need to play this and see what happens. And quintessentially about 170 hours close to later, and as well as a couple months where I actually skipped the initial release of Luigi's Mansion 3 and Link's Awakening, 2 of your games that you have your top 10. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, it's like, to say that I enjoyed Fire Emblem Three Houses is a understatement. It felt like a colossal event. It felt like something that it just felt like something that was just kind of out of the ordinary for me. I mean, I like the Fire Emblem series. That's no surprise. I've been playing the games ever since Path of Radiance on GameCube. Never really beat some of the Fire Emblem games, like Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, and then I do have some of the Game Boy Advance like Fire Emblem games though, but it wasn't until Awakening on 3DS, which quintessentially was my number one game in regards to when that thing came out. But in regards to the scope and scale of Fire Emblem Three Houses, there's really not a lot of games that do this, where the quality of the story, the quality of the combat, the gameplay, the depth of what you can do for character customization in the regards of what initially you can do in regards to what path you want to choose. Quintessentially, there is about 3 or 4 campaigns shoved into this game, and they are just different playthroughs of this entire game. This big old epic sort of like war drama between these 3 houses and like quintessentially what's going on inside the world. And honestly, it's part like the part of your time is dealt with character development, kind of like a Persona style, where what I mean by that is you acquire social links, and by unlocking certain social links, you get to know characters better. So some characters that may be tropish, that may be like something that is considered said, oh, this character's not so interesting and stuff like that, but once you battle with them more, you unlock different dialogue options, you go in, you chat with different characters and see different characters interact with one another, and then quintessentially you can just flip-flop and see this character in an entirely different light once you understand little bits of the intricacies. Oh, this person's parents died because of this reason. Oh, hey, you know what? These two are best friends, so let's go ahead and like see what they develop, this and that and stuff, and it's just little intricacies like that I grew to appreciate Fire Emblem Three Houses more so than just like a regular RPG in that regards. Because quintessentially, there's some RPGs that I've played that don't do the story wise, don't do the story stuff well. I mean, a lot of them can be basic and stuff. Some of them can like fumble in regards to like the overall plot or what you do at the end of the game. But I can say with absolute certainty, Fire Emblem Three Houses nails every single bit of what it wants to go through and present itself. It's also one of those games where I feel like if you love strategy games, if you like hardcore RPGs, definitely if you have a Switch, this is the number one game you should play. Especially over something, I would say, like Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild, in my honest opinion, is a fantastic game. And for people who love, like, Zelda games, you're going to pick that up anyway. But if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of what one of the best games of the Switch is capable of, or if you want to get into, like, a Persona-like game and stuff where it's, like, the dialogues of characters and on top of the whole epicness of, like, what characters you're going to recruit, which dialogue options you're going to go through with offer what support for which, how are you going to customize classes and this and that. Quintessentially, this is the type of game for you if you are into that hardcore like RPG stuff like I am. But excuse me. Also, what's interesting about this game, it's like this is one of the first games where even after playing close to 170 hours, I bought the season pass for this thing. The season pass for this thing has the additional storyline stuff of the legitimate fourth house. And so, sometime during this year, I'm going to go back, possibly, and replay Fire Emblem Three Houses again. And it's going to be my third playthrough. And it's going to be probably one of the more memorable ones, if that, because I've only have one house that I have not played through, and that's the Golden Deer. I played through my first time, got a little bit of feel of it with the Black Eagles, really love the characters in regards to the Black Eagle house. The Blue Lions, second playthrough, I consider that kind of almost like a true ending, sort of like that, or a true path in that regards. They had their own intricacies and stuff. I really like the characters here, and I recruited a bunch of people from the Golden Deer onto the Blue Lions, and now if I go through and have the whole Golden Deer stuff, oh man. Honestly, what I'm saying is no matter what class you choose, you're going to love a lot of the different characters. You're going to love a lot of the different gameplay and the different types of stuff inside this game. And quintessentially, this is one of the games that presents itself as the total package of being arguably one of the top 5 best games on the Nintendo Switch currently. You got games like Breath of the Wild, you got Mario Odyssey, you got Smash, you got Mario Kart 8, but Fire Emblem Three Houses is up there with just the right amount with each one of them, in my personal opinion. The only thing is whether or not if you want to go through and invest the time in order to enjoy the game, because that's one of the things that may dissuade people from my number one pick of the year. And that is, are you ready to actually go through on your Switch and spend a good couple months playing this game, actually getting involved inside the storyline stuff? Because it's very simple to pick up. But it's another thing entirely to get to go through the motions of playing, of leveling up your professor level, of conducting your classes and making sure all your students and stuff know what type of class you want them to be and this and that. It sounds daunting at first. And believe me, it was to me at first. But then when I got the rhythm of it down, and I got the different paths and the things that I wanted to set forth with my group of characters, and then added a couple from other classes, that's what made this game special to me. But yeah, long story short, that's my game of the year, Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Well, awesome. I kind of guessed that going into it.
Yeah, we kind of pretty much figured.
Yeah, no,
that was going to be number one.
I get why though. And you did a great job explaining it. But would have thought though, going into our individual top 10s, that we'd have one game in common out of 20 spots, only one game in common, and it's Untitled Goose Game. Who would have thought?
Honestly, I kind of felt deep down that even though we had our 2 games that were left to unveil, I know Untitled Goose Game was going to be our game of the year.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the Drunk Dashers podcast game of 2019 is Untitled Goose Game, and it has to be. It should just be the overall. It was Dice's game of the year for 2019.
I know, so it's so hilarious seeing people's reaction to that. Yeah. It's just awesome.
It's awesome to see that though too. So yeah, that was our top 10 games of 2019. We're done. It's over. It's fun to finally it's nice to finally get that off our chest. Gables put this list together a while ago, and I kind of avoided looking at it for a while. But yeah, it's nice that we got it out there. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. Hope you guys appreciated or enjoyed all of this, all this podcasting goodness we just did. I'm like 7 beers in right now, so I'm doing pretty good. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I was your host. I was Tyler.
And I have been Colonel Gables. Thank you for listening to this fun-filled ride with us. And I'll tell you what, thank you so much for just giving our podcast a chance. Mm-hmm. If you want to go through and give us 5 stars or whatever the heck you want, feel free to go through. Or hey, if you want just to go through, let us know, whether on Facebook or on iTunes, or even if you're one of the special few that like to listen to us on YouTube. We would love to hear from you basically anytime that you feel fit. But overall, for everyone that's been listening over the years, we would like just to go ahead and just say thank you because without you guys and stuff just going through and stuff, hell, Tyler and I, not sure we would be going through and doing this to this such an extent for so long.
No.
But because listeners like you go through and give us a listen and go through the extra effort and actually enjoy our content and stuff, yeah, that means the world to us.
Yeah.
At the same time and stuff, Tyler and I, we just enjoy doing this.
It's very fun.
That's just part of what we like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great time. We do it for its fun, but also it helps when we know people are listening. So.
Yep.
So, I think that's gonna wrap up the show for this week, tonight, whatever. Because we've done a lot of the Audacity things are like 3 hours right now almost. So, yeah, we've done a lot tonight. So we definitely appreciate it once again, you guys listening to all of us over the years, all that. Hope you guys really enjoyed this list. And if you haven't played any of these games, check them out because they're great. All these games, over 20 spots, we had 19 different games, which I don't think we've ever done that before.
We never done that before.
No. So that should tell you right there. It was sneakily a pretty good year, actually. So yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for listening. I was your host, I was Tyler.
And I've been Colonel Gables. So until next time, everyone, see ya.
Bye, guys.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Too sweet.
Oh, you turned it around. I don't know how I feel about this. Wow. What do I say? Oh, too sweet. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Excuse me. You too many beers there. Anyways, we're on iTunes now, so go on there, check us out, and if you like us, leave us a review, and we'll even shout you out. And Jack will send you his credit card number.